Okay, well, thank you all for coming to the workshop on academic integrity. Both those of you that are here with me, and we're also providing this online to other students, so there might be some awkward pauses while I try to figure this out, but hopefully we'll get through it very well and easily together. My name is Ann Hudson. I am the librarian for the College of Arts and Letters here in Hattiesburg, and that encompasses 13 departments like history and English, but you don't really have to know all of that. I'll tell you at the end how you can contact me if you'd like to. These are the types of things that we're going to cover today in the workshop. We're going to talk about the university as an academic community. We're going to talk about what academic misconduct is and what plagiarism is and how you can avoid it, and consequences if you don't avoid it, if you act inappropriately. If you've already taken the academic integrity module, then some of this might be a review, but we thought it was important enough to talk about in person so that we can go over in more detail some of the more important pieces of it. We're going to talk about some tips and tricks about time management, about doing appropriate and proper citation, and then I'm going to provide you with some other resources to use in the future as you're working on your papers here. So now that I've given that introduction, I'm going to start the PowerPoint. So I have this on the screen. It's the Google screen that you are probably all familiar with, but you may or may not have noticed on the bottom where it says "Stand on the Shoulders of Giants." And the reason why this is important to us as part of the academic community is because everything that you do here is building on the work of other people that have come before you. Other scholars, other professors, the people that write your textbooks, the people that write the articles that you're using in your papers. So if you just remember that even Google attributes their sources to other people. And so the person that they've taken that from is Sir Isaac Newton, who some of you may have heard of before. And the way that he said it is, if I've seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. And that again reinforces the view that every piece of your research process should be building on the next one. So you might read a book, you might read some articles. Every step of the way, you're building on what's been done in the past. And hopefully, if you're doing it correctly, you're citing those sources as you go through. And then by the end, you'll have a well-written, well-cited paper. So, all of you here should be familiar with this statement that is on the slide, but I am going to reinforce it to you again because all of us here at Southern Miss value academic integrity. The first two lines of the Southern Miss Creed says, I belong to a community of scholars at the University of Southern Mississippi. I will demonstrate integrity and determination in all academic pursuits. The university also has an integrity agreement, which you should have all signed, that says, as a member of the Southern Miss community, I will act with honor and integrity at all times. I will not engage in any academic misconduct, and I understand that such acts violate the academic integrity policy and student honor code and undermine the community of trust that is so important to the integrity of the university. And I hope that that's why you're all here this evening, that you want to fully participate in our academic community and you want to work together. And in fact, you'll probably meet friends and colleagues that you'll work with in the future, and you'll keep, we call it networking. And so you just keep this community with you as alumni, even after you leave here. So again, we're consistently reinforcing in this first part that we're building on a solid foundation of people and work that has come before us, and that each one of us is actually a building block in that process, and each one of our assignments, each one of our papers, our tests at the end, everything is building on the last piece of work that we've done. And to build this sort of a nice community of people that are working well together and are doing research together and passing through our classes together, you have to learn to trust one another. And part of that is by doing good, solid research and having the class discussions and turning in papers that are well written and well cited. Because you may have experienced in what we call real life outside of school that you're in some sort of a store and you see like National Enquirer, or you're on Facebook and you link off to some strange posts. Sorry, there's somebody trying to come in the back door. So you know that even in the election process that we just went through, they were talking about a lot of fake news stories. So you have to be very careful with the sources that you're using and relying on. Welcome. That's okay. And the way that you can do that is you can talk to a librarian, you can be referred to academic sources, and those academic sources have generally been through a peer review process. And what that means is that they have been sent out to reviewers, and the reviewers will double check your citations, double check your writing style, and make sure that it's appropriate to be published. So that's why when you come to the library for instruction sessions, we always say, let's look for peer-reviewed academic sources, because they are already a part of the academic community and they're people that you can rely on and trust. And they're not just the magazines that you're buying at the store. Also remember that this will apply to you in real life as well. One of our examples is that as you start building up this habit and practice of doing good citation and good writing style, it's much like athletes you may be familiar with. They practice, and they don't practice the wrong way just to get it done easily and then show up on game day and do it correctly. They practice the proper way and do it right every time, so that on Sunday it's just an old habit and they don't do anything wrong. So that's very much what you'll be doing at your workplaces, I hope. You always want to show academic integrity in everything that you do. And so once you're trained into these good habits, then you'll take them on after you graduate. So that's kind of our discussion about academic integrity in general. And now we're going to go into the specifics about academic misconduct. Does anybody have any questions before we move on about being a member of our group here at USM? It's okay if you don't. But we have several breaking places where I'll stop and ask for questions. But you can also raise your hand if you'd like to. So now we're going to go into the main topic, of course, of tonight's discussion, which is the actual academic misconduct part and what that means, particularly here at USM. So we've talked a lot about becoming a member of the community and building that trust amongst ourselves. Well, when we violate that trust by doing things like cheating and plagiarizing and stealing material, then obviously we are doing academic misconduct. We are not acting as a part of the group, and we are violating the norms of the group that we set earlier when we read out the creed to you, and also the integrity policy that you all signed. So by violating those, you have committed academic misconduct. And our university defines academic misconduct as cheating, plagiarism, inappropriate acquisition or provision of information conspiracy to cheat or to plagiarize, lying about academic work, stealing academic materials, and unapproved multiple submissions of assignments. And I want you all to think about those for a minute, because then when we go on to the next slides, they're going to be examples, and I'll start asking you all to guess which one it falls under. So cheating, plagiarism, inappropriate acquisition, conspiracy to cheat, lying about academic work, stealing academic materials, and unapproved multiple submissions. Those are your options. So, say that there are students that are collaborating with other students or other unauthorized persons to obtain answers to take-home exams. What do you think that would fall under? What would you be in trouble for? Okay. Anything else? That is correct. But there is another one you could be. Conspiracy? Yep. Very good. And several others as well. Academic misconduct is an interesting term in that many times the answers are a lot of the different violations. The next one is receiving unauthorized help in writing a paper, including deciding on the paper topic, drawing conclusions, analyzing data, or not giving credit to another for these contributions. Can anybody guess what you'd be in trouble for there? Okay. And probably at least one other one. So you'd probably, again, be cheating, and you'd be working with somebody else. So it could be conspiracy as well. So there are many different ways to do academic misconduct. And so we'll have some more here. Okay, so this is one that frequently trips up students, and we certainly understand why, but it's very important for you to understand this one. Using the same paper for 2 classes without explicit permission from both classes, teachers. Yes. Okay, well, very good. A lot of times students don't recognize that using your own work is plagiarism, because some students think that it's your work. You're not stealing somebody else's ideas, you're not stealing anybody else's words, but it is plagiarism because you're not creating original work for the new professor, and because in fact you are copying somebody's work, it's your own work. So very good. That's one that people usually miss. And then there's one about hoarding materials and equipment to advance your own research at the expense of others. Does anybody remember that one? Yep, very good. And I think there's one about acquisition of materials, inappropriate acquisition. And have any of you ever experienced that before, where you go to get a book off the shelf perhaps, and it's gone and it's not checked out, and you're thinking maybe one of your classmates might have taken it, huh? That used to happen a lot to us in law school. People like to hide all the cases that we needed. So that obviously will get you into trouble. And then misrepresenting one's academic accomplishments. That was one we kind of flew through at the end, but does anybody remember seeing that one? I think there was one called lying about academic work. So you would not want to apply for a job or to continue on through school telling people that you got all A's if in fact you did not. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today, is to make sure that you don't get the XF grade because that will stay on your transcript forever. So let's try to learn some more so that we can avoid that happening. And so plagiarism is academic misconduct. And this is the one that we're going to spend the most time on today. And that's because it's the one area out of all of those that we just went through. We went through about 8 different versions of academic misconduct. And this is really the one that we think that you might do by accident. We're not going to give you all a pass and say, yeah, you did it all by accident. But it's the one that you can do by accident, because you're not going to cheat by accident. You're not going to steal other people's material by accident. You're not going to get copies of the tests or the answers or any of that stuff by accident. But sometimes, if you don't know enough about what plagiarism is, you might do that by accident. So that's why we're here today, is to talk a little bit more about how you can avoid plagiarism and how you can do research and build on the work of other people without committing plagiarism. So the definition of plagiarism is up on the board. It's the use of another person's words or ideas without appropriate quotation or attribution, claiming or submitting for academic credit the work of another person. So the important part, I think, in this slide is to mention this concept about ideas, because I think that's where sometimes we get into trouble. Because you know if you're using somebody else's words. You read an article, you see the paragraph on the screen, and then you write something very similar, and then you don't cite it. That's obviously plagiarism. But sometimes you can read an article and it has an interesting idea, but you want to write something a little bit different, or maybe even the opposite point of view. But the generation of your idea was that first article. So even though you're not using that article, and in fact you feel the complete opposite way from the article, you didn't get the idea for that paper until you read this article. So you should give them credit as well. So that's what that means about the ideas. And so what are the consequences of academic misconduct? And I hit on one a little bit earlier, but it's important enough to emphasize again. If you get caught plagiarizing here at USM, you should get an XF grade. Your professor has every right to give you an XF grade on that paper, and then to, talk to you more about your grade in class as well. Because you have shown academic dishonesty, you have cheated, and so they do not want you to continue on into our community of scholars as a trusted member. They want you to have, it's like a scarlet letter, right, that will follow you forever. So that's what happens at school. And if you get enough of these, if you get 4 of them, then you can be expelled. There's a U there, but it's really expelled, and get kicked out of school, and you can't come back. And then, once we've talked about habits earlier, if you get into the habit of cheating and plagiarizing and just being dishonest, then once you get on the job, you face job loss. You can face legal action if you're stealing people's work and ideas. That can be copyright. It can also be other things, of course, in the workplace. And this is the bottom line. This is the one that applies to you everywhere you go. It's your loss of reputation. No one will trust you if you have this XF grade to continue on as a valuable member of society, really. So you should really try your best to avoid that at all costs, because we want you to be successful, happy students that get A's and come back and go to football games and stuff. So now we're going to move into the part about how you avoid all this mess and don't get into any trouble. So there are a few different ways that you can use somebody else's work without plagiarizing. And one of the easiest ways, and the ways that most of us were taught when we were younger, is to paraphrase. But many times we were taught a little bit not right. Our grade schools and high schools may have done you a little bit of a disservice by saying that you can just change the words and it's okay. Well, that's not necessarily true. You're not summarizing the material. You're not copying the material. You are actually putting the original words into your own words. And that's how you paraphrase. Otherwise, you would want to quote it. If you're going to use their words, then you should be quoting. If you don't want to use their words, because that happens a lot too, people will be so afraid of this process. And we don't want you to be afraid of this process. Really, by the end of this session, we're hitting you with the scary part early, but by the end of the session, you should recognize that there are multiple tools out here to help you, including the librarians and your teachers. And so you will learn to do this and it will become second nature. So when you paraphrase, you are going to take the original words like that are on the screen, and then you are going to put them into your own words, but you're still going to provide a citation because you're still relying on that information. It's still their idea. So that is one way to avoid plagiarism, to paraphrase and then cite. Very important. The next way is, we just touched on briefly, is to actually quote it. If it's important enough to copy the words as they are on the page, put them in quotation marks. Now, what I was about to say is sometimes the problem with students is they get so afraid of this process that they quote everything. Well, then that's not your paper. It's not your original ideas. It's not you learning and growing. It's you just taking a couple of books and a couple of articles, probably some online sources, and just copying and pasting. And that's not really learning and becoming a part of our academic community either. So you should quote when you really think that the words on the page are important to you, but don't quote your entire paper. That's not what research is. Research is building on other people, but doing your own work and your own thoughts and ideas. But you can quote, and the way that you quote is, of course, to put the material into the little quotation marks and to cite it. Tell who and the page number, but we'll talk about citations more in a minute. So the other way that you can avoid plagiarism is by crediting ideas. And I've spent quite a bit of time tonight talking about this because I think this is really where people get tripped up. It's not the words on the page, you recognize that. It's the ideas. So if somebody had the idea that building a long distance network takes effort, so it's best to pick one or maybe two geographic areas on which to focus, and then you put down, when developing a long distance network, so-and-so suggests looking at one or two locations. So you're taking their idea, but you're giving them credit. You're mentioning the person's name, Nelson, you're giving the date and the citation. So even though it's just an idea, it's not the actual, you're not taking their words, you're giving them appropriate credit. And that's how you do good research. And that doesn't mess up your page, and it's not like a bunch of quotes. It's just giving them credit within the text that they were responsible for that idea. Okay, so we talked about this, but you all got this right, but we're going to mention it one more time because, again, this is the one that we thought would trip you all up. But it's about the multiple submissions. The submission more than once without the authorization of both of your teachers, the teacher in the first class, like say you took English 102, and then you took Com 111, and you have very similar papers that are due, assignments, then you need to talk to both teachers, your English 102 teacher and your Com 111 teacher, and say, I wrote this really great paper on climate change, and I want to write on the same exact topic in this class. Can I do that? If you get the authorization of both teachers, then you can. But that's very important because a lot of times students will just do it thinking that, hey, it's okay. Again, it's your own work. The assignments happen to be very similar, so why can't you turn in the same assignment multiple times? It's because they want, generally speaking, they want original work for each class. And that's the way that you learn. If you kept turning in the same assignment all the time, you wouldn't be learning and growing. So that's the explanation that I just gave. So we'll skip out of that. Okay. So now you know the technical ways to avoid plagiarism, using the paraphrase, using the quotation, crediting people's ideas. But that's all well and good for when you're actually doing your papers. But how do you avoid plagiarism before you even start the research process? And that's why we're going to talk about some time management tips. And I realize that, now it's very late in the semester and you guys are probably all rushed and you have papers due next week or the week after. But take this away for next semester, get started on a good fresh step, and even for the next 2 weeks that you have available to you, you can use some of these tips to make sure that you do not plagiarize. So here are some tips. Keep a calendar. Please keep a calendar. Every one of your teachers should give you a syllabus with the dates that your assignments are due. So as soon as you get that syllabus, January 6th or whenever you get it, open it up, look at the due dates, and put them on your calendar. And then from that, work backwards. If you know that you have a paper due week 6, don't just leave it on the calendar for February 20th. Move backwards so that like February 1st, you should have gotten all your research done. February 10th, you should have started writing. February 15th, you should have your first draft done. So that all of those things go onto your calendar so that you're constantly reminded that you have a paper due week 6. You should give yourselves rewards for this. I mean, nobody is telling you that this is fun or easy. It's hard work, but you're in college now. So that's a part of being a part of our community, is that you are going to do research, you're going to write papers, then you're going to graduate and get good jobs. So give yourselves rewards, even if it's something silly like going to Starbucks. Once you've gotten your assignment done, go have fun for a few hours. Another tip is that you should go ahead and get started. Sometimes that's the hardest part. And one of my colleagues' tips, and I kind of like this one, but it's amusing on the slide, of course. It talks about eating your frogs first. That just means whatever it is that you hate about research or writing, do that part first. Get it done. If you don't like coming to the library, then schedule an appointment with the librarian like the first day. Get it done. If you don't like reading a whole lot of material, come to the library, do your reading, get it done. If you don't like the writing process, come in, do your writing, get it done. And that way you have the whole rest of the semester to do the things that you enjoy about being in school. Hopefully some academic pursuits. I'm not saying just go out and have fun, but do the parts of the assignment that you like least first. Is that way you'll get that done. Oops, I went backwards. Develop new study rituals. That's just another tip, is that sometimes we know that students in particular, you have different lifestyles than we do. We used to have them too when we were younger, but you probably go home and you eat dinner and watch TV and probably listen to music, and you probably have roommates. And if that's not the best study environment for you, come to the library, come to Starbucks, do your studying where you can get your studying done. Some people seem to be, because I'm in here every day, some people like to study with a lot of noise and talking and commotion going on. So if that's the way you like it, that's fine too, but make your own ritual. So then you wouldn't want to sit in a nice quiet place because you wouldn't get any studying done. So it's all very individual. Okay, so there are online tools that can help you with the time management tricks. We don't have access to the website right now because of the way that we're taping this, but that's okay because it's up on the screen. So you can see that there is an example of an online calendar. It's called a research project calculator, and it's available from the University of Minnesota. And it's now called, they have a little subheading at the University of Minnesota called Minitex, M-I-N-I-T-E-X. And the reason why we selected this one to show there's many online calendars. All you have to do is Google online calendar. And this one, though, you can put in your date of assignment. So like I said with your syllabus, put in February 20th, I have a paper due. And it will walk you through every step that you need to get your paper done. So we like that one and recommend it. And again, you know, I'll give you my contact information at the end. You can always ask me for these slides or just contact me and I'll talk to you about them. So another time management tip is the Pomodoro technique, and that is Italian for tomato. So that's why you're seeing a weird tomato timer on the screen. And the way that this one works is that sometimes you might give yourself an assignment like, oh, I have to do my research. I'm going to research for 3 hours tonight, or I'm going to write for 3 hours tonight. Well, then you get about halfway through and you want to look at Facebook or text somebody or get something to eat. And then by the time you get back, you're tired and you just forget it. So instead, you should set yourself little mini goals and work, for example, 25 minutes. It doesn't have to be 25 minutes, but say you work for 25 minutes, you take a 5-minute break, and then you come back and you work again for 25 minutes. So that way you're setting yourself little smaller goals that are much more achievable, because otherwise you'll probably just leave and not come back to do the rest of your 3 hours. So now that we've talked about academic integrity, we've talked about academic misconduct, we've talked about how to avoid academic misconduct and some time management tips. Another way for you all to avoid plagiarism is to properly document your sources. And what we mean by that is the dreaded citation. I know you probably all hate doing citations, but it's very important to the process. And again, I can't show you the video right now, but I took some notes on it because we decided as a group that are presenting this information that we wanted to share this source, and I want to give proper credit. It's North Carolina State University. It's their library. They did a citation video. And the reason why we selected this is because it gives a very brief overview about what citation is and why we cite. And to us, that's two of the most important pieces to understanding this entire process. Because what better way can you avoid plagiarism than by just going ahead and citing your sources? Use the sources, do all the research, find all the books, find all the articles. We're not telling you not to do research, but we're just saying when you find an article that you like, write down the person's name and the title of the work. That's pretty much all you have to do. There's more to it, of course. You know, there's like 8 pieces to a citation, but that will at least get you in the habit of every time you read something that you're interested in, jot down author title so that you know that you can get back to it later. So, what is citation? Citation is the way that you identify sources that you have quoted, that you have paraphrased, or that you have otherwise used. And that means, of course, crediting the ideas again. And the way that you do citation, it's a standard practice in writing, and each discipline, and this is the tricky part, each discipline has their own style. And that's the part that's very frustrating for students, and honestly for some of us as well. We just offered a whole suite of citation workshops, and I had a slightly comical experience because I was teaching a history-based one, and I had a science student come, and this person was lovely and interesting, but I said, I want to be welcoming, I want to share this with you, but scientists speak a different language than historians do. So if you want to come just to learn, then of course that's great. But I don't want you to think that the history style is the style that you should use for your paper, because you're doing a completely different paper and they speak a completely different language. So she stayed and it was great, but that's something for you all to be aware of. If you're in an English class, you're probably using MLA. If you're in a history class, you're using Chicago. If you're in one of the social sciences, like a psychology, you're probably using APA. And then there are the science ones that I won't even mention because I don't know them. But we have all of those manuals here in the library. We also have citation help on our website that I'll show you at the end. We have some tutorials linked out to. And of course, we have the Writing Center here on the first floor. So there is plenty of help with citation. There is also help through the databases. You may or may not be aware that part of your database searching for articles, there will be a link for the citation. It's not right. Do not copy that citation and use it as gospel. There's almost always something not quite right about it. Either there's capital letters where they don't belong, there's punctuation where it doesn't belong, and now, of course, MLA just got updated very, very recently, and the online databases have not updated their MLA style yet. So, plenty of help for you with citation. So why is it, and maybe one of you can try to answer this question, why do we cite to begin with? What are some of the reasons that you might want to cite people's work in your papers? Very good. Yes, definitely. That's one big one. There's one more big one. Anybody else have an idea? Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, yeah. It makes it the citations make it easy to follow up on. You can find that same article, and also when there are multiple citations in an article, then you can use those to see the relationships between them and build up on them as well. So very good. Let's see. So one brief note about the citation, still from this video, is that most of the styles ask you to do two things. They will ask you to acknowledge the source within the text. So we saw a few examples of that up on the screen where you'd see something like Wilson 2015, but then the real detail of the citation comes at the end, and each citation style calls it something different. It can be a bibliography, it can be works cited, it can be references. So again, it completely depends on the citation style that you're using, but that's where all the detail goes, where you put the author, title, publication, date. Everything that a reader would need to follow up on that information will come at the end. So that's what that video says. I wish I could show it to you, but that's okay. You can, I've told you how to find it now, so you can watch it on your own, or now that you have the notes, you might not need to. Okay, so scholarly communication, this just continues the idea that each discipline has their own conversation, and that's part of what you're building on now. Even as, I don't know, where you all are coming from, but even if you are freshmen, undergraduates, just writing your first papers, you have now joined our community and you are now becoming a scholar. So whatever discipline you choose, if you choose English or history or any of the others, you will begin talking to your classmates, you will talk to your professors, you'll talk to the librarians. You might submit your papers for awards and grants. You might go and present them somewhere. So you have now joined this scholarly conversation. So you need to know what the common language is amongst yourselves. So again, this is what I was saying, is that there are so many styles. Why are there so many styles? It's because every discipline started out in a different way. And they each have their own standards. So some of them were typesetting, on really old-fashioned paper that they had to duplicate in odd ways. And so they wanted to set a style so that everybody submitted their work in that style so they didn't have to recreate it, recopy it all. Some of them want to have other pieces are more important. Like say for APA, they always put the date right up top because for them, dates are very important. For those of us in the humanities, we care more about who the author is than when it was printed. We can read stuff from the 1800s. We don't care when it was written. We care about who wrote it. So the date comes at the end for us. So each style fits the needs of each discipline, but many of the elements, again, I just went through with you, are the same. And citing has the same purpose, those two reasons, basically. You want to give them proper credit, and you want other people to be able to follow what you have done. So this is the student question, not the me question. Why do I need to learn them? It prepares you to go out into your career. As if you pick a business career, they have a very different writing style. They will probably write reports. If you pick law, they will probably write memos and have a certain style. If you picked some other profession, then they will have their own way of communicating amongst themselves. Some people now are moving to online communication, so you'd have to pick up on that and how they communicate within their groups. So this whole process of learning how to cite and learning how to write is going to help you in your careers for 30, 40 years down the line. So, and of course, this is why we're here tonight. Knowing how to use the citation style and document your sources appropriately is how you demonstrate academic honesty. That's how you turn in your paper and your teacher says, yes, well written, well cited, A. Moving on. So, okay. So here are the essential elements that each citation style requires. So we recommend that you go ahead and start documenting just as soon as you start the research process, because sometimes this is what happens. And this is the other reason why plagiarism can sometimes be a little bit accidental. It's laziness. It's not really an accident. But you go out and you find all these articles and you read them, and then you go away for Thanksgiving break, and you come back, and then you might have a test, and then you go to write the paper, and you're like, oh, I don't know which article this was from, but it was a really good idea, so I'm just going to go ahead and use it. So if you keep the sources with your articles, then and your notes, then you won't get into any trouble for citation problems because you'll actually have a note. I I liked the idea of this article, and it was written by Ann Hudson, and the title was blah, 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 and where it was published and when it was published. So that if you do decide to use that paragraph, you have the citation already pretty much together. You just need to put it in the right order and use the right punctuation. So here are a couple of examples of citations using APA and MLA. And this one is a book chapter, it looks like, because there is information in MLA here in quotation marks, and then other information in italics. So you all can, I hope, see on the screen, but do you see who the author is? Anybody? the first one, the Bachner? Yes, Bachner is the author. And so what is the title of the work that you're actually citing? Very good. And so this is the title of the book chapter, and you've cited to the pages of the chapter. So that's how we know that this is the work that you're citing. But this is located within another title. So that's why this is in italics, because it's a book chapter within the Handbook of Interpersonal Communication. So that's why they have two slightly different styles. This is the title of the work. This is the title of the book. And then it's published by Sage. So that's how you read a book chapter citation in those two styles. I will note that I'm going to click onto the next slide, and I am well aware that MLA has updated this. So this is not entirely right, this bottom one now. But this is a presentation that we have been offering all semester. So we did not get rid of this word print. That's what we would do now. We would get rid of the word print. But at any rate, so now we have another item, and again, we have what appears to be a title, and then we have another set of information. So this would be an article, and it's within a journal. And so that's why we cite them slightly differently, because again, it's the title of the work that you're actually looking at. It's on these pages, but it's within this. Now at MLA, we call them containers. So that's just the bigger source. So either a book chapter within a book or an article within a journal. And this is how you would find this actual journal. You would go to the volume 40 and the issue 2. So there are multiple volume 40s, so you need to go to the volume 2 and to this page to find this article. So that's why you need all of those pieces to the citation. You need the author, you need the date, you need the title of what you're actually looking for, and how do you find this article? It's within the journal, and it's at this certain volume, this certain issue, and this certain page. So all of those pieces are required to do a proper citation. Okay, now, as I referenced before, every style has their own manuals, and we have them here. So we can help you find the manual, and we also have online guides to many of the citation styles. I am in the process right now of updating the MLA one. We just got it last week. So there are tutorials that can help you. Librarians can help you. Writing Center can help you. So here are some, this is much like the time management tips. Here are some good habits that you should do. Start early again. These teachers should not be surprising you with papers that are due week 4. It should be on the syllabus. So as soon as you see that you have a paper due, start thinking about when you need to get the pieces done. Find and read your sources. Double check, oh, that's slightly different, but so find and read your sources, then cite what you've read, start the writing process, and then draft and redraft, edit, re-edit, and then present it. And this next heading here is to double check the citation generators on the web and databases. And that's what I had referred to earlier. If you search for articles, say for example, an EBSCO product, like we recommend students use Academic Search Premier to begin with, has a good general overview. You can click on citation, and then you can click on the button that says APA, MLA, Chicago, whatever, but double check that, because again, frequently we find mistakes. So you would not want to rely on that 100%, but we do tell you to still do it because it saves you a lot of typing. Some of these citations get very long. And if you can copy it from the citation generator and then just edit it, that saves you a lot of time. So also, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit in the past too, but take really good notes, please, 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 however you do it, whether you do it in paper form, if you're doing it on your phones, if you're doing it on laptops, however it is that you're keeping track of material, take really good notes as you're doing the reading. This will save you so much time at the end when you're starting to go back and try to find your citations. You're trying to find where you might have seen this idea before. If you have the notes already done, you just flip open your notebook and there it is. So there are citation management tools. These are software that are designed to help you keep citations. These are generally used a couple different ways, either in the sciences or in our disciplines if you have multiple citations. I personally just like to do my own citation as I'm writing, but that's usually because I am not writing some dissertation that has hundreds of citations. I usually only have 5 or 6 citations, so I can do them myself. But if you are assigned to write a real research paper with, 30, 50, 100 citations, then you might want to investigate these tools because they can keep your citations. It's kind of like an online notebook. So they will keep them for you, and then you can just generate them at the end. And we also have a guide that will walk you through this process as well on our library page. And I believe that we also have workshops related to these as well. So getting down finally to the bottom, other resources. Please, if you take nothing else out of this session, remember that you should ask a librarian. That's what we are here for. We work for the students. We're here all the time, and we want to help you get good grades. And we don't want anybody to get bad trouble for citations. So please ask us, and ask us either in person here in Cook. We also have a library down on the coast. And then we have Ask a Librarian services online. You can chat with us. We give you an immediate response. You can email us. Those might be more lending towards the citation help because it takes some time and some concentration. Chatting is really for fairly easier questions for us to answer. And then here's the link to the Writing Center. Please don't forget to take advantage of them. That's what they do as well. They take appointments, they take walk-ins. Probably closer now to the end of the semester, they'll want appointments because everybody should be using them. When you get done with your paper, take it over there. Let them look at it, review it with you, help you get done. And then, of course, this entire program is based on student success at Southern Miss. We are all here as an academic community to help you, so take advantage of their resources as well. They have tutors, they have support, and we will all help you. So here are the links to the actual guides that I discussed. There's a citation help guide. Here's an outside source, but we do frequently refer to them as well. It's called Purdue Online Writing Lab. Some of you might know it as OWL. It also will walk you through the citation process. It also has sample papers, so you can see how they're supposed to be set up. You know, certain citation styles, again, will have you do things like headings. Some of them will have you have a title page. Some of you will have, you know, indents in certain places. So please take advantage of things like the OWL to set up your papers properly. And then I know you're probably dying with all the academic materials that we've given you, but we also have a plagiarism tutorial. So if you need a refresher after today's session, please take advantage of our plagiarism tutorial. It's right on our home page, and you can test what you've learned today and read the materials. We have resources within the tutorial so that you can kind of do a pre-test. You read the materials and then see if you do better afterwards. So, and I think this is finally, these are the 4 librarians that work at the Research Services desk here at Cook Library. Elena is our Health and Nursing librarian, is our Education and Psychology librarian. Tracy is Science and Technology, and I am Arts and Letters. So you don't have to remember that, but just know that if you contact us for an appointment, then you might get assigned to one of us depending on what your paper topic is. If it falls under Arts and Letters, then I would be happy to meet with you, you know, one-on-one or online to discuss it more. If you just want to use Ask a Librarian and get any of us, that's okay too. Or if you're doing a health paper and you want to meet with Elena, she would love to meet with you as well. All 4 of us would. So, questions. We covered a lot of material in a short amount of time. So what did I go over too fast? What did you miss? Did you come here looking for something that you may or may not have gotten? Or is everybody just happy now? You all got everything you need? Everybody's ready to write your papers? Everybody's ready to cite? Everybody's ready to go home and go to bed? All right. Well, thank you all for coming. I hope this helped a little bit, and be sure to contact us if you have any questions later. And if you did not sign in, please do sign in